welcome to Your Favourite Teacher. Today we're looking at English Language GCSE and how to achieve top marks using your reading and writing skills. For this video, we'll be using the extract, "Bring up the bodies," the first line of which reads, "His children are falling from the sky." So make sure you've got this downloaded. Question 1 of the language paper then. This tests your ability to be able to find two types of information in written work, explicit and implicit. More than that though, language paper 1 tests skills you'll need to be able to use for the rest of the exam. For the 4 marks this question can earn you, you'll need to be able to understand the text that's given to you and quote information as accurately and as concisely as possible. It's recommended that you only spend 5 minutes on this question. Just enough time to find 4 details and list them with accurate quotes. What kind of information you can quote, as well as how to quote that information, will be covered in the rest of this video. What's the difference between explicit and implicit information? Explicit information is any kind of information that's obvious or given in a straightforward way. When quoting explicit information given to you, you can use direct quotes for one word or another, or you can rephrase it. On the other hand, implicit information is any piece of information or detail which is not obviously stated. Instead, implicit information is something that's been suggested or implied by the author. In order to extract implicit information, often we will need to use something explicit and obvious and draw a conclusion from it. Reading between the lines in this way is often called an inference. Inference is one of the most basic skills you'll need in all of your reading assessments and is a vital skill in being able to understand what an author is trying to achieve beyond the obvious. Let's have a look at an example and try and unpack how we find this information. So open up your source. In the first paragraph, the main character is watching who he calls his children as they are engaged in a hunt. Can you spot what is explicit and obvious about these birds and what is implicit and merely suggested? Question 1 will ask you to list 4 details about some part of the extract. It's normally near the top. This might be a character, a part of the setting, or an event which is occurring. In this case, we're going to list 4 details about the birds found in the first paragraph. The information you list can be either explicit or implicit. There's no limit on how few or how many of either you give, but it's usually best to just stick to explicit information. These explicit details are easily found when you look for an action, a description, or a fact about the subject of the question. So what action, description, or fact do we get from that first line? The birds are falling from the sky. Also, it would be perfectly fine to write that the birds are falling, without mentioning the sky, just so long as you quote the word falling in a full sentence. What other details about the birds do we get from the first line? We wouldn't want to write that the birds are the main character's children because the author didn't mean this literally. Since the birds aren't literally the character's children, it might not actually count as a detail about the birds. Luckily, there is a good piece of implicit information we can extract from that sentence. What does the word children imply about the birds? What does it implicitly tell us about their relationship with the main character? You might want to write that the main character cares for them as if they were his children, or that the birds are cared for, since they are called children. But these sort of inferences take a lot of explanation sometimes, so it is usually best to stick to explicit information for question 1 and quote them like we did for "the birds are falling from the sky." How do you quote accurately and concisely? Let's return to the first paragraph from "Bring up the bodies" and find 3 more details about the birds. His children are falling from the sky. He watches from horseback, acres of England stretching behind him. They drop, gilt-winged, each with a blood-filled gaze. Grace Cromwell hovers in thin air. She is silent when she takes her prey, silent as she glides to his fist. But the sound she makes then, the rustle of feathers and the creak, the sigh and riffle of pinion, the small cluck-cluck from her throat, these are sounds of recognition, intimate, daughterly, almost disproving. Her breast is gore-streaked and flesh clings to her claws. Can you tell which of my following answers are given correctly? Remember, we are looking for description, action, or facts about these birds. 1. The birds are falling from the sky. 2. The bird's eyes are the colour of blood. 3. One of the bird's names is Grace Cromwell. 4. The bird is told to be silent. We know that the first answer is quoted correctly from what we talked about before, but which other answer is given in the same way? The third answer, one of the bird's names is Grace Cromwell, gives and quotes this piece of information exactly the same way by taking a fact about the bird, its name, and putting it into a sentence. What's wrong with number 2 and number 4 though? In number 2, though the word blood is used to describe the bird, the way we have written it in our sentence isn't actually true. The sentence in the text says that the bird has a blood-filled gaze, maybe meaning it's angry or bloodthirsty, but it doesn't tell us that the bird's eyes are literally filled with blood, so the description we've picked up on isn't literally true and therefore wrong. Again, with number 4, we've made the same mistake. Even though silent is used to describe the bird's actions, for example, she is silent when she takes her prey, it isn't true that the bird is told to be silent, as the given answer states. Unfortunately, even though this quote is about the bird and quoted well in the sentence itself doesn't state the detail accurately enough to earn a mark. Remember, when listing a detail, one word is often enough. Choose one word which shows an action, a description, or a fact about the subject of the question. Remember though, the way you present that word in a sentence needs to be accurate to the literal facts in the text. I'm Miss Meeks, and we've been revising the English language GCSE. Good luck.